Welcome back, everyone, for the first in a new series of live streams, simply called Have Your Say Live. For those of you that haven't been here before, my name's Paul Thorpe, and this is the place to get the things that matter to you off your chest. We are polite, we keep it real, we want to hear both sides of every story, and most importantly, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, so you don't miss a single forthcoming show. Joining me this evening is a very, very special guest indeed, a friend of mine and former undercover Scotland Yard detective, star of TV and media, is also an author, an all-round good guy. That's Peter Bleksley. Good evening, Peter. How you doing, mate?
Good evening, Paul, and good evening, everybody. Thank you very much indeed for having me. First of all, I'd like to say just a couple of short things. Anybody who's watched me on the telly recently will know that I usually, standards are important. So it's a suit and it's a collar and it's a tie and look very presentable. It's dressed down Friday night, please, people. So forgive me for being in a T-shirt and a hoodie. And the second thing is I've had an incredibly busy week and I'm not complaining. I'm delighted. And I have not been down a mine smashing rocks with a pickaxe. I do fully understand that. But because it's Friday, I am just treating myself to a cheeky beer while we have this natter this evening. So on those two fronts, please, everyone, forgive me.
Band again says you're a scruff.
Guilty as charged, Your Honour.
Lovely to see you, mate. Haven't seen you for quite a while. Let's get straight into it. Look, before we do, actually, thinking about it, look, 99% of the viewers watching, they're going to know exactly who you are. But for those that don't, just give us a very quick rundown of your background and what you do these days, just so everyone knows.
Okay, and I'll keep it brief. Many, many years ago, as a raw young 17-year-old from Bleksley, I joined the police cadets, then went into the police, did 21 years, predominantly as a detective. My career was cut short because I had to live in the witness protection program. That all went horribly wrong and I had a catastrophic mental health breakdown. So I left the police many years ago, 1999, in fact, that long ago. And so for the last 24 years or so, I've scratched a living as an author, broadcaster, commentator. I've written books. I've written 3 plays for the BBC, consulted on films and TV dramas. But predominantly these days, I can be found on various radio stations and television channels commenting on crime and policing, essentially.
Excellent. Now, I know a lot of the regulars in here tonight will be looking for some watch chat. Unfortunately, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different tonight. I want to start off, Peter, first of all, because it's not often I get a man of your caliber and experience on the channel. So I'm going to make the most of it, and I'm sure the viewers are going to find this absolutely enthralling. First thing I want to touch on is Abdul Wazidi, the acid attacker. Now, the police just recently found his body in the Thames, where I think they thought it was all the time, so it was no real surprise. What came as a surprise to me, and I'm sure a lot of other people, is that in the process of looking for him, they very quickly found 2 others, which kind of makes you think, bloody hell, how many bodies are there all floating in the Thames? No wonder they tell us not to drink the water.
Yeah, well, the Thames at any time of the year is largely unsurvivable. Olympic swimmers would struggle to survive in the Thames in February when it's in full flow and the currents are so incredibly strong. It's a self-imposed death sentence. It's suicide. You're taking your own life if you throw yourself in the Thames this time of year. But I commented very widely across a huge number of media outlets about Azadi from the day that he committed the crime, which I think was the 1st of February, through to the 9th of February, when the Met Police said that their working theory was that he'd gone in the Thames. Now, I went on various channels and said, he's in the Thames, he's dead. End of story, he's in there. And the reason I was so convinced that I knew that was the case was because the Met Police had scoured CCTV so they could definitely put Azadi looking over the parapet at Chelsea Bridge into the Thames. But more importantly, and this is what a lot of people, and I make no criticism whatsoever, but a lot of people don't understand the importance of a negative CCTV sighting. And so what I mean by that is where you explore a CCTV system or systems and you don't see someone. That is often as important in the hunt for a fugitive, trying to work out where Eddie had gone, as it is when you get a positive sighting of someone.
Yeah.
But of course, the public have become so used to seeing either crimes committed on CCTV or on a phone footage, or seeing the image of someone, that they automatically link CCTV must equate to an image of someone or something. It's often very, very different in that not getting a sighting of someone is equally as important. And I knew when the Met had said, we've not seen him exiting the bridge at either end, then there was only one conclusion, and that was that he'd gone into Old Father Thames.
Yeah. But in your time, in your career, did the Thames play a big role, Peter? Is it something that came up a lot? Were there often bodies coming out of there? Or I don't know, it just surprised me that they found like 2 that they didn't expect to find so quickly as well.
Yeah, but it's a huge body of water. The bottom has got a lot of silt on it because it doesn't get dredged anything like it would do in an ideal world. There's plenty of debris on the bottom of it. And when a person goes in, they've very little chance of survival. And rivers and seas and oceans are often very slow to give up their secrets.
Yeah.
If you think about Nicola Bulley, I think it was 3 weeks from her disappearance for her body to be found. And with Eddie, it was 19, 20 days or so. What did really strike me, and I know we're going to touch on this a bit later on, was when I said very, very firmly on national TV channels, Eddie is dead. He's in the Thames. He's dead. People's refusal to believe the Met Police's theory, because trust in the Met Police has tanked so catastrophically low, with much justification, I hasten to add, that people now just won't believe anything they say. They could say tomorrow it will be day, and people ain't going to believe it. You know, they will say that night follows day, and people won't believe it. The police says it. It's catastrophic how their reputation has just been completely and utterly shredded.
And it's funny because they were actually right about Nicola Bulley as well.
Lancashire Police, yes, they were.
As it turned out.
Again, there's another police service, and I think it's policing kind of per se, where people's trust in them and their respect for them is so catastrophically low that people just refuse to believe anything that comes out of their mouths.
Let's touch on that a little bit, Peter, because I know that you're a man that don't mince with his words. You know, you see the story from both sides. You spent years in the force. I know you have a sort of an affinity with that. Obviously, you would do after all those years. But I don't know if you've seen any of my recent videos. It seems to be, to me at least, the country seems to be in a bit of a crisis state at the moment. I mean, there's been a worrying rise in anti-Christian behaviour up and down the country, where the police are concerned, at least. I mean, would you go along with that, first of all? Have you seen it for yourself? And if so, why do you think that's happening?
Policing is in a catastrophic state, and there's an awful lot of reasons as to why that is, and I'll happily explain some of them if you want to hear them. Absolutely. When we talk about Christians, let's look at an example from 2 or 3 weeks ago that got a lot of traffic on social media, when a female special constable went up to some Christians who were singing gospel songs, and she told them it was against the law to do that. Utter nonsense. Complete and utter cobblers. She did not know the law. And that, of course, is a huge problem with current police training. They do not get anywhere near as much training as they should about the law. Now, I'm sure some people are going, what? The old people don't get trained about the law? No, nowhere near as much as they should do. So consequently, when they're on the streets, they make so many mistakes because they're making it up as they go along.
Yeah.
So you've got very inexperienced cops going out for the first time, being led by other inexperienced cops. So you've got the blind leading the partially sighted, And that's why they make such catastrophic errors.
There seems to be, you know, obviously I get a lot of feedback, and one of the things that keeps coming up time and time again is that right now, I mean, we all know what happened in Parliament just yesterday, I think it was, that there seems to be a case of the police, wherever we're talking about up and down the country, seem to be treading on eggshells and very afraid of upsetting certain groups. I mean, if we really, are we getting to the point where our police forces are becoming afraid to police our streets?
Their police services these days, Paul. Come on, get with the language. Police force has got all those negative connotations to it.
I'm too old for services.
The Metropolitan Police Service. I mean, there you go. Many of us thought the rot had set in way back when they changed the name of it. It's absolutely catastrophic. There are, without a doubt, some senior police leaders who are quite simply afraid of policing properly. And let's look at Rochdale, Rotherham, Oldham, all those revolting cases of where children were plied with drugs and alcohol and raped, sometimes gang raped, often by men with brown faces. And senior police were afraid to go and act accordingly. They didn't want to create division within communities. What a complete and load of utterly shameful tripe. And of course, those stories are still rumbling on because there has been so much pressure brought to bear, predominantly by a wonderful friend of mine, a woman called Maggie Oliver. Look her up. If you've never heard the name Maggie Oliver, please look her up and look up the Maggie Oliver Foundation. Maggie was in Greater Manchester Police. She saw what was going on. She spent years banging on the doors of senior police leadership, trying to get them to do something, and they didn't, that she resigned because she knew her voice would be louder outside of the police than rather than being in it. And what that remarkable, incredible woman has done for victims, for raising the awareness, for getting things done is astonishing. So please check out the Maggie.
And I think she's suffered for that as well, Peter, hasn't she?
Oh, hugely. Let alone financially to start with. She jacked her job in with nothing to go to. I mean, that is courage. So she's made huge personal sacrifices. But the foundation is doing all right. It survives on donations. So if anybody's got a spare couple of quid, and I know times are very difficult for many people, I know the foundation would be hugely, hugely grateful. They've got a glitzy fundraising dinner coming up in Manchester. If anybody's up that way, again, you can find details of buying tickets. I'm sure it'll be a great fundraising dinner. And Maggie needs the funds to keep the foundation going because they are providing great help to victims, many of them children who were gang raped after they've been plied with drink and drugs by people that the police were too scared to act against. Now, not Maggie. She has got, metaphorically speaking, of course, you know, she's got balls of steel to use.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, she's done some marvelous work. I'm a big fan of hers, and if only we had more people like that in charge. I mean, look, I've got a lot of friends in the police force, Peter. Some
I haven't. So many of them make my guts.
I actually still do, to be fair. I actually still do have a lot of friends in the police service. And you know what? It pains me to keep knocking them. And I always tell them, look, lads, I don't mean it personally, right? It's, you know, I know your orders are coming from upstairs, but, you know, some of the stuff that I'm watching lately, Peter, I'm going to be honest with you. I know it's a bit of an elephant in the room, but I see the Met in particular time and time again treating certain people with kid gloves, you know, treading on eggshells. Yeah, if these were football fans, or
Yeah,
people waving Union Jacks, or even maybe, you know, anti-vaxxers that have their batons out. They'd be cracking them over the head, you know, and giving them all sorts of shit. And I think the time has come, you know, every camel, you know, there's a straw that breaks every camel's back, right? Every worm turns. And I think the British public in general, people like myself who have before have stayed quiet about this stuff because we just want peace and harmony. We don't want problems. We want love, and we want to be friends with everyone. We are a very welcoming, we are a very kind and accepting people. But Peter, I'm sick of looking over my shoulder every time I want to talk about stuff like this.
Paul, park your naivety elsewhere. All right, you're sounding like Ringo Starr, bless him, and I love the Beatles. Be fair, peace and love, right? It ain't going to happen, right? The world doesn't operate like that, and we have had problems throughout the decades where one community dislikes another community, where one community will not integrate and will not appreciate our customs, our culture, and our country. And that has created division. Division has been here for many, many decades. It has exploded at times on the streets, and there's been huge unrest. It's nothing new. But what there is now is an increasing feeling amongst many people, and I see that expressed on social media all the time, that the police operate a two-tier policing system, that they will treat one community in one particular way and yet be a lot harsher and firmer with another particular community. And when people see that, it bristles with them, because we all have an inherent sense of fairness. We like things to be fair. And when we think they're not, people get the ump. They get very, very upset. And when you throw into the mix the cost of living crisis, so much else wrong with our country, the pathetic behaviour of our politicians, the abysmal state of the NHS, appalling policing, rampant shoplifting, people can't afford to pay their rent, pay their mortgage, and I could go on and on and on and on. It's a perfect melting pot for public unrest. And I feel that if we have a long, hot summer and things continue to deteriorate and there is continued unrest in the Middle East, which is creating a lot of division and unrest in the UK, then I'm quite concerned as to how this summer might pan out.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Peter. I mean, it's like that is one of the problems. You know, I mean, look, there are some terrible issues out there in the Middle East. And, you know, look, I said in the video the other day, I don't have a dog in that fight. The time the dog comes to my fight, if you like, is when it happens where we are, our home, the UK. And you're right about the fairness side as well, because it doesn't really matter which side it is for us, the British. If we see one particular side being treated badly and the other side being treated fairly, when naturally, look, mate, that's why you support QPR and I support Fulham. We like an underdog, right?
Correct.
We always liked an underdog.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think for all the things that people say, you know, well, define British values and all that kind of stuff, and I don't think I could do that. I do think something that runs very, very deep within the British psyche is a sense of fairness. I really do. I think that is utterly ingrained in British culture, in the British psyche, fairness. And I can use a very recent example to highlight that. If you look at that wonderful ITV drama about the post submasters and submissions and the Horizon scandal, you know, a story which had been rumbling on for years, but when that reached a wide audience, what chimed with everybody, what got the government kind of like kickstarted into action, the fact that it was unfair.
Yeah.
And people don't like unfairness. It's like, and you see that across many, many things. And likewise, when the police are perceived as operating a two-tier system, people think that is inherently unfair. We as Brits don't like unfairness.
Yeah, absolutely. Peter, I want to talk about a show that's been on lately that I've been catching up with, To Catch a Cop. I guess a lot of people watching this have been, watching it as well. First of all, I'd like your thoughts on that. But secondly, I know that you've got a big story to tell us as well, which will kind of tie in with this. Have you been watching that show at all?
Yeah, I watched that 3-part documentary into the Avon and Somerset Professional Standard Department for Professional Standards, whatever they call themselves these days.
Yeah.
The first episode was shocking for me in terms of some of the wrongdoing that it exposed. But the second episode is the one that really got me wanting to throw things at the telly. And that was the episode where police officers had not committed any criminality, had not been guilty of any offences of gross misconduct, but essentially had behaved in a way whereby they needed a bit of advice. Like I needed when I was an 18, 19-year-old headstrong cop. I had plenty of advice, sometimes whispered, sometimes shouted into my ear, and rightfully so. Well, I saw a cop put in front of a kangaroo court of some were called community leaders.
Yeah.
And what was utterly pathetic was where this cop, and you could see some of their body language, the nervousness in their hands, which the camera panned onto on a number of occasions, as this cop sat in front of a completely disproportionate, unfair, outrageous kangaroo court, where one of those community leaders tried to link in some stupid, tenuous, in fact, irrelevant way, the slavery industry. And there's a cop sitting there. And the cop should essentially, pardon my vernacular, should have been there for a bit of a chat and a little bit of a bollocking.
Yeah.
And was in front of a kangaroo court. It was utterly outrageous. They should never have been subjected to that. And these kind of things are another reason why police officers, decent police officers, who make an honest mistake, who need a little bit of correcting in their behaviour and their thinking, are walking out of the back door going, police is not for me. I can't be done with this. And I really don't blame them. And the chief constable of Avon and Somerset, I thought, was utterly appalling. Talk about throw her workforce under the bus. Don't think in any way, shape or form I'm condoning any police misconduct or gross misconduct or breaking the law whatsoever. But you know what? To err is human. You tried doing policing for 30 years without making a few mistakes along the way. Yeah. Of course people do.
I mean, at the end of the day, you never mince your words where the police are concerned. So you're obviously very passionate about what you're saying. How healthy do you think it was to allow the cameras in?
It was naive and stupid. And the people who did that don't know how television works. They've got no idea. I mean, fair play to the production company. They obviously had them over big time.
I thought
they really did. They fell for the old 3-card trick. Avon and Somerset Police fell for it there completely and utterly to let people in to the Professional Standards Department. It's completely different from letting a journalist go on a ride along for one shift, in a uniform car. I think that's a really good thing. Yeah. And when I see journalists doing that, there is always a good story come out of it. So it's a positive spin for the police. It's a positive look. Sorry, I shouldn't really have used the word spin. It's a positive look for the police. And I think ride-alongs with journalists are a really, really good thing.
Yeah, I think they're positive. Yeah.
They're positive. People tend to get a very good perception of policing whenever one of those are reported in the media. I'm a fan of them. But to have a production company come in and hoodwink you into thinking you're going to come out of this looking really good, you are, because we're going to show the wonderful work of your professional standards department, rooting out those wrongdoers.
Yeah.
How stupid and naive can you get?
They
And
really fell for it, didn't they? They really fell for it. Yeah.
Completely.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Like a 3-card trick. And why do they fall for it? Because so many senior police officers, the length and breadth of the country, who have got degrees coming out of their ear holes, they've all been to Oxbridge, pardon me, but you know, Oxford and Cambridge, they combine it to say Oxbridge, you know, if you're part of the elite, or they've been to some other red brick university, right? Because they have to have letters after their names instead of in front of them as well, right? And ever since that started happening, pretty much around the time Tony Blair took over, and then Ian Blair got parachuted into the top job at the Met, they've become fluffy, woke, pardon me, liberal, self-obsessed, more into self-service than public service. And not only do they let the good cops on the front line down, they let the public down.
Yeah. That's my feeling, because I still believe there are a lot of good cops out there. I still, maybe I'm naive, but I still believe that there are a lot of good cops out there that want to do the job properly. I still have a problem with them, and I'm going to reveal that. I'm going to reveal that tomorrow morning. I'm releasing the video in the morning, telling them, you know, why I've got a problem with every single one of them right now, because there's things that I think that they are responsible for and they need to do. Before I go on to one of my biggest topics tonight, tell us about this this case that you was talking to me about before we came live. Right.
When I say that I'm disliked by many police officers, it's true, because I tell the truth. I tell the uncomfortable truths that they don't like. Although, fortunately, there are many people within law enforcement who I can call upon as reliable and trusted sources. They like what I say. They like it when I go on the telly and tell the truth about senior management and their obsession with the fluffy, liberal, wokery things of this world, rather than doing what frontline core policing should be. So I've got me ear to the ground, in other words, and I get told some pretty horrendous stories. Anyway, the story that came my way in the last couple of days was that because the police, senior police leadership, are so obsessed with diversity, equality, and inclusion, DEI, right? They, of course, have altered the entry requirements dramatically so that policing can be representative and reflective of broader society. So, I get told the following story. A young person who suffers from ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, I think is the right description, applies for and joins the police. They tell the police when they join that a symptom or a byproduct, or I'm probably going to get the terminology wrong because I'm not a medical person, part of their ADHD is that they have problem with crowds. Okay? They can't be around crowds of people. Now,
right,
call me old-fashioned, but I would rather gently suggest to any such applicant that perhaps frontline policing was not for them. There are many other roles within policing, you know, as a civilian, where they could probably do a fantastic job for policing. So I might have been a bit more inclined to steer somebody down that route.
Yeah.
But, of course, I'm not in policing and haven't been for a very long time. This young person joins the police, who are aware of their ADHD and the fact that they have some concerns around crowds as a result of it, right? So, gallop forward, and this officer with the ADHD diagnosis looks at kind of like a duty roster that comes out. So a list of dates and work that needs filling. You have these events, public order events, football matches, all those kind of things. And there is an opportunity for this officer to work 2 of their rest days, either on bank holidays when it's double bubble, double pay, or they're having a rest day cancelled with less than 5 days notice. So that's another opportunity to earn double bubble, right?
Yeah.
Both these opportunities are in connection with public order events. And this officer, the same officer with the ADHD diagnosis and apparently the issue with crowds, puts themselves down to work both of those days on their rest days. So they're going to get 2 days of double bubble. Nice money if you can get it, right? You've not all gone to sleep yet, have you? You are following me. I'll keep it.
I'm following you. Yeah.
Okay. So this officer's supervising inspector has a look and says, no, actually, these are public order policing events. And you've got an issue with crowds. So I'm not going to allow you to work those 2 days. And that supervising officer is absolutely right. This officer with ADHD can't have it both ways. They can't have an issue with crowds, except when there's double bubble on offer, when all of a sudden they don't have an issue with crowds.
Yeah.
I mean, take your pick here.
It's got to be one or the other, right?
Exactly. So the supervising inspector denies that officer the opportunity to work those 2 rest days and earn double pay on both of them. So what do you think happens? Come on, you've guessed it.
He gets into trouble.
The officer with ADHD has made an official complaint against their inspector. So that will have to be investigated, all at public expense. But you might think the officer has made the complaint in regards to their disability. What they've also done is complained about their supervising officer on grounds of, wait for it, drum roll, drop your head, racial discrimination. So there you have it.
Yeah.
No wonder the Metropolitan Police reputation has gone down the tubes. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what they're having to deal with.
I think a question that's coming through a lot, I'm looking through the chat here, a question that's coming through a lot here, Peter, is what's the answer to all this? Because that's the $1 million question, right?
Right. Great.
And is there even an answer to all this?
Oh, there is an answer, but it's going to fall on deaf ears apart from your audience. The answer is for policing to reconnect with Sir Robert Peel's policing principles. In 1829, when he created the Metropolitan Police, he laid down 9 principles of policing. And if you go online, you'll find them. Just put in Robert Peel's principles of policing and they'll come up. They are as apposite and as relevant today as they were when he wrote them nearly 200 years ago. They should dictate what policing is and what policing does and how policing behaves. But because now all of the senior police officers are these university educated, many of them at Oxford and Cambridge, remember that, Oxbridge, right? They have this utter obsession with the pseudo-intellectual claptrap that has gone into their heads when they've been at university. They have thrown out the baby with the bathwater when they got rid of everything that was good about policing from the 70s, the 80s and the 90s, and they've reinvented it in their fluffy, flaky, wokey way. And whilst back in my day, policing was far from perfect, certain detectives handled more brown envelopes than the post office. I get that. Certain prisoners, when they were nicked, would apparently have trouble with certain flights of stairs. I get all of that. But you know what? The public was safer. They felt safer. they were safer. So many more people respected the old bill.
I think
And now,
my big problem with them, Peter, is like now is trust. I just don't trust them, and that's a problem. You know, I don't trust them. I don't trust them to do the right thing.
Right? I know we keep hearing about trust and confidence, right? The old bill trail it, and you're mentioning it now, and I completely understand why. For me, the word is respect. Respect is more important. If people respected the old bill, they'd do what they say or what they were asked. They'd have their backs.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Trust and confidence is just a new, modern, invented, another bit of pseudo-speak bollocks out of these university-educated clowns who are leading us all to hell in a handcart. Respect.
Don't get me started on universities and what comes out of our unis these days. Don't even go there.
Respect.
Jesus Christ.
The old bill has disappeared.
Do you think
they don't kind of work on our behalf? That's how it seems. And
that's how people feel.
That's how people keep alluding to. And what is undeniable is there's some very, very good, decent public servants with a police uniform on. Yeah. But there's an awful lot of wrong uns and there's an awful lot of clowns at the top.
What's during your time as a copper, Peter, would you say that corruption was happened more then than it does now? You know, my take on it is the 70s, etc. You know, you got the feeling that there was backhanders with some of the boys in London, etc. I get the feeling that's probably not so much of a problem these days. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's all changed entirely. And let me point out, policing never has been and never will be perfect. In fact, the first police officer to join the Metropolitan Police lasted about 2 hours before he got sacked for being drunk on duty. Right? And that's true. So policing will never be perfect because it's full of people. Yeah, back in my day, there was certain detectives. You knew it. They were brown envelope merchants. You knew that, like, without a doubt. There was corruption. People got fitted up. It was called noble cause corruption in those days. There was racism. There were some very thuggish police officers. But I kind of rewind to what I said just a couple of minutes ago. The public felt safer. The public were safer. The streets were a hostile environment for criminals, which is always a good thing. And the police, by and large, were respected. Yeah. Not by everybody, of course not. I'm not being stupidly naive. Criminals will always hate you when you're in the old bill. And I used to wear that as a badge of honour. I loved it, the fact that so many criminals, on whatever manner it was I was working, knew me and hated me. Quite right. I was very, very happy about that. But now the policing has changed. The police have changed. The wrongdoing has changed. We didn't used to kidnap, murder and rape people. Did you see that latest Met police officer this week? Convicted of multiple rapes. His name's Cliff Mitchell. Search him up. Yeah. Cliff Mitchell, convicted of multiple rapes, including raping a child. Oh, yes, a child rapist in the Metropolitan Police. The big scandal that's going to come out when he gets sentenced, and it barely got a mention in the media this week, which was an utter outrage. It better get some coverage when he gets weighed off, when he gets sentenced, is that he was subject to a non-molestation order, right, which had been issued by a court, whilst he was a serving police officer. And they still had him. And he went on to rape and rape again. I mean, unbelievable.
Where's the accountability? Where's the accountability as we move up the ladder?
Where's the supervision? Where's the management? Where's the vetting? Where's the training? Where's the culture that will root somebody like him out?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like I said, the big question for everyone is, you know, how do we put, I mean, the entire state of the country. I want to talk about something that is going to put the cat amongst the pigeons with some of the viewers, at least a little bit. But I've got a belief. It's just a theory that I have for myself. And I know that you're friends. I know that you know Nigel Farage quite well and that you've worked with him a bit in the past. Someone said to me the other day, Paul, we're destined without a shadow of a doubt for a Labour government when the general election comes round. They said to me, is there anything that as a Tory voter, right, you know, I'll put my hands up, I've always been a Tory voter. They said to me, who are you going to vote for? I said, well, I would never vote Labour. And I can't vote Conservative anymore. I'm politically, I'm pretty much homeless, right? They said, is there anyone that you would, is there any way?
Millions of others.
Pardon me?
Like millions of others, politically homeless.
Yeah, politically homeless. I mean, there are other parties, you know, Reform, etc., doing their bit. But look, at the end of the day, we're talking about a party that could potentially win an election. And their question to me was, is there anything the Tories could do to make you vote for them at the next general election? And my answer to that was, yes, put Nigel Farage in charge. Do you ever see that happening?
Well, you're right. I have met Nigel a number of times, and I've been on his show a few times, and we've spent quite a few occasions together in green rooms, having a chat and trying to put the world to rights and all of that. And what I will say about Mr. Farage is, whether you like him or whether you loathe him, he has an absolutely inescapable, astonishing charm. Right? Now, I know it doesn't work for everybody,
yeah,
but it's quite amazing. I've seldom seen it. In fact, I don't think I've seen it in anybody. The level of charisma that he has, it's utterly astonishing. It's quite something to behold. What wouldn't surprise me, although I'm no keen student of politics, I follow politics, of course, and policing these days is inherently linked to politics in so many ways. And I sit in green rooms every day of the week with political correspondents, political commentators, and all of that. So I'm not going to make out to be falsely naive about things, but it's not my specialist subject. And what I say is this: what wouldn't surprise me, because I've never ceased to get surprised about what happens in politics, is that blown in the wind Starmer gets elected as Prime Minister, survives for one term, can't turn things round as he would wish or as the public want.
Yeah.
And then the Tories come back to fight the next general election with Nigel Farage as their leader. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, I think that's
not getting any younger.
That's probably more likely. Or I think Suella Braverman's making a bit of another play again this afternoon. I think I've been a big fan of Nigel's in the past. He's done one or two things. I'll be honest. He's done one or two things, and I think he's been a bit. For me, he's been a little bit two-faced at times about certain people. But look, he's certainly a man that I would vote for, because I believe that he has morals, and I believe that what he says he would get done, he would get done. Unlike the people who have lied to us for years upon years. I mean, I would rather have someone in charge that told me the truth and was doing things I didn't particularly like, and have these ne'er-do-wells that keep telling us they're going to do things and don't deliver. They're the ones that drive me up the wall.
Yeah. But I'm afraid we live in a world of double speak and people claiming to do things and not delivering. And I'm very glad we brought the conversation back round to policing. Because that's kind of it's how it is so often. There's a kind of, and I come across some of these people that operate in the corridors of power fairly infrequently, but there is an arrogance and an assumption that they know best. We're the mere plebs, and so we'll get what we're given. There's a revolting statement that I've always hated ever since I was an 18-year-old puppy of a police officer at Peckham in South London. And that is the expression that the public gets the police force it deserves. No, I absolutely hate that statement. And somebody said it to me last night, and I was, I bristled at it, because I think the public should get much, much better than that. I think it's demeaning. I think it's insulting. I think any police officer that says it displays that they're actually in policing for themselves rather than in it for the public. I hate that expression, and yet it gets used widely. I think what we kind of need, although this will never happen because the intellectual elite have got such a grip on the corridors of power in policing. I know we have elected police and crime commissioners. How well that works out, I would say not very. Most of them are aligned to political parties. Most of them actually are aligned, the majority of them are aligned to the Tory party. I think they end up being mouthpieces. I don't think they're robust. I think they cozy up to chief constables too much, apart from in London where they're always at loggerheads. What I'd like to see in some way, shape or form, and I haven't thought this out and I haven't prepped it before I've come here to have this chat, and thank you very much for having me. I think what would be great was if we could have, in some way, shape or form, a people's policeman.
Yeah.
You know, a police officer that was of the people, represented the people, was connected with the people, spoke like the people, thought like the people, and understood the people's concerns. And by that, I mean, could do it broadly. You know, had a particular thing about them whereby they would represent kind of all people who obeyed the law and was an enemy of all people who disobeyed the law. What I don't mean is all this nonsense that senior police have got obsessed with about community engagement, where they have to go and wave the flag of whatever minority group it is. You know, whether that be a minority group based on faith, sexuality, colour of skin, and all that kind of game. Because that, in my opinion, is utter nonsense. And I'll tell you why it's nonsense. And I'll tell you why it's fundamentally unnecessary if the police did their job the right way. All of those people from all of those groups are victims of crime. Crime affects everybody, and crime affects every community. If the police went in and investigated everybody's crime, probably professionally, to the best of their ability, even if they couldn't solve it, do you know what? People would appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
They would really appreciate that. And it didn't matter what their sexuality, what their faith was, what the colour of their skin was, or anything like that. None of that would matter.
Yeah.
But the police have pandered to all that with this stupid, nonsensical obsession with diversity, equality, and inclusion.
Yeah, crazy. I know I said this to you before, Peter, and I think you sort of kind of, you know, sort of just sniffed at it really, but you never thought about going into politics yourself?
No.
Doesn't interest you?
No. I don't have any skeletons in my cupboard, but over the years, I've been an open book, and I've been brutally honest about the mistakes I've made in my life, the things that I wish I hadn't seen, heard, that I'd acted against but didn't, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you know how it is. You run for elected office, even though I've told it to the world before some kind of journo could expose it and give me a hard time over it. No, I've just done too much.
I get that. I get it.
I've travelled a path, you know.
Totally get that. Peter, before we wrap up, we've got 10 or 15 minutes more left. If anyone's got any sensible questions for Peter they want to pop in, I'll try and throw one or two questions in. I just wanted to, the last subject I've got for you tonight, Peter, is again something else we was talking about just before we came online, and that's about the mother that you was talking about. I think that deserves a talk, a mention.
I am so fortunate in what I do that sometimes I get to meet incredible people. Well, this week I met somebody who now sits at the very top of my incredible people met list. Her name is Mina Smallman. Her two daughters were murdered when they were celebrating a birthday in a park in London. They were brutally stabbed and murdered. Bieber and Nicole, rest their souls. Beautiful, wonderful, vibrant young women in the primes of their life having a birthday party picnic in a park, and they got murdered by a complete piece of garbage. Talking of garbage, 2 uniformed police officers were sent to protect the scene, to hold a cordon so nobody could come in and contaminate it, so that all that precious, valuable, potential forensic evidence could be obtained, retained, and might lead to the capture and conviction of the murderer. I hope people are getting just how important the job
how serious it is. Yeah, exactly.
How vitally important. And what did 2 of those dirty, no good pieces of shit do? They went and took photos of the girls' dead bodies, young women, forgive me, of their dead bodies, and they shared them. How disgraceful. Who raised those people? Because I know when I was raised, my mum, bless her, who's still with us at the age of 95, said never disrespect the dead. And that has stuck with me. What kind of low-down piece of garbage must you be to take photographs of murdered, dead bodies for your own gratification and then share them?
And you're there to guard them in the first place as well, which makes it even worse.
Exactly. Honour their memory. Preserve evidence. And of course, rightly so, they both went to jail. Not for long enough in my mind. I think they got 33 months, so less than 3 years. I'd have given them substantially more. So I met Mina, their mum, this week in the green room at Good Morning Britain on ITV. What a remarkable, astonishing, wonderful woman. It was a great honour to meet her and spend time with her. And then we appeared together alongside each other on the sofa. We were talking about the police officers from Nottinghamshire Police, where the news broke this week. They've been disciplined for exchanging, I think it was gross and offensive messages about Barnaby, Grace and Ian, who got murdered on the 13th of June in Nottingham last year. Yeah. I mean, don't these old Bill ever learn? I mean, again, disrespecting the dead.
Shocking.
What is wrong with police?
Shocking. Peter, I've got a few questions here for you that the viewers want you to ask for. The first one is from Charm Superior. It says, Peter, would you ever leave the UK? And if so, where? Thank you so much.
I'm staying to fight. Someone's got to. I'm going to stay to fight. And now I know I'm 64, right? And I couldn't punch my way out of a wet paper bag. My street fighting days are well behind me. But when I say I'm staying to fight, I don't mean my getting gloved up again or going on the cobbles again. What I mean is I'm going to stay to broadcast, to talk, to write about things that are important to me, and hopefully get some semblance of sensibility back into those who run this nation.
I love that answer, Peter. We was on holiday in Spain just after the new year. Me and my wife have been thinking about going down there, and she said to me, your heart's not in this, is it? And I said to her, do you know what I want to do? I want to stay and fight. That's what I want to do. I want to stay and fight. So fair play to you, Peter. Kid Mambo says, would Peter consider writing his life story? It would be incredible. Well, just tell us about your books and bits and bobs, Peter.
Thank you very much for asking. My autobiography which is called The Gangbuster. I wrote over 20 years ago. So it tells the story of the first 40 years of my life up until when I left the old bill. So The Gangbuster, it's available on Amazon. I've written other books about crimes that I've investigated, and I still have an ongoing interest in some of those crimes. And they have a smattering of autobiographical stuff about them because I tell my story through researching them. So, yeah, I've got 4 books out there. The Gangbuster, To Catch a Killer, Manhunt, and goodness me, I've had that tiring a week. I can't even remember the title of my own book.
There's another one for you. Peter, do you believe in bringing the death penalty back for the vilest of criminals like I do?
Brilliant question. And there are some criminals that have really, really tested me on this one. But actually, I'm very happy to live in a country where we don't murder our own citizens, or we don't kill our own citizens, no matter how bad they are. Because for me, the real punishment for the worst kind of people that we have in this country is when they have to wake up every day of their sad, pathetic existences, knowing that they're never going to be released, and they have to look themselves in the mirror and they have to confront the consequences of their actions.
Yeah.
If you look at Fred West, Harold Shipman, to name the 2 very notorious multiple serial killers, neither of those, and there's been many others, could face the consequences of their actions, and they took their own lives, which for me clearly indicates how incarceration for life is a very, very tough punishment, and is very apt and very appropriate, and is the right punishment. Sticking a rope round their neck gives them the Shipman and the Fred West easy way out, like Abdul Azedi, who went in the Thames. I would far rather that he was captured, put in front of a court, convicted, and had to do his time rather than going in the drink.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. The only problem that I would have with that is that the bastards don't get life, do they? They get sort of 20 years, they're out. I mean, when you think that someone like that vile scumbag that killed the 2 girls, Ian Huntley.
Colin Pitchfork, you're talking about?
Yeah, well, we'll take your pitch.
Or Huntley, the silent killer.
I mean, any of them, right? I mean, they should surely never, ever see the light.
Yeah, but they will. I think Huntley's got a whole life order. Pitchfork, of course, is applying for parole again. He should never, ever, ever be released.
Yeah.
And the worst of them do get a whole life order. And we are seeing, I think, a slight increase in the whole life orders being issued because the legislation has been changed a little bit. And I agree. There are some far too lenient sentences for murderers dished out. I was at the Old Bailey a few years ago to watch a bloke called Shane O'Brien, who carved my friend's son open in a bar and killed him. Josh Hanson, rest in peace, Josh. O'Brien's a piece of shit that killed Josh. And Shane O'Brien then legged it, went on the run for 3.5 years across the world, and only got 26 years. And I don't think that's anywhere near enough. I mean, all right, it's 26 years when he will then become eligible for parole. But I simply don't believe that 26 years is long enough for carving open and killing a beautiful 21-year-old man like Josh Hanson. Not long enough.
So I'll answer this one. John, yeah, you can deal with Charlie. He's absolutely great to deal with. Good fella. Let me just have a quick look down these. Try not to miss what have we got coming in here. Let's have a look. Stand your grounds, stand and fight. That's what everyone's saying. Charmed Superior says, cheers, Paul. Peter cracks me up in a good way. He's always good value, Peter, that's for sure. We've got a couple of super chats come in. Let me just grab those as well before we end up tonight. Peter, what you got planned for the rest of the year then? I think you're going to be a busy man, mate.
Yeah, well, of course, a lot of my work is not planned. It's dictated by whatever is on the news agenda. When bad things happen, my phone rings. But I've got my show Crime Suspect on Talk TV. It's produced by Talk TV. It was on Talk TV channel tonight at 8:30, but it's also on a Talk TV's YouTube channel, and that's been recommissioned. We're actually going to go out on the street and do some sort of on the street documentary style episodes as well. So that's still ongoing. I haven't got another book lined up at the moment. I'm quite frankly too busy. My work into the unsolved murder of Alistair Wilson still continues. That's one of my books, To Catch a Killer. The Hunt for Kevin Parle still continues. That's my book, Manhunt, and the BBC podcast, Manhunt, Finding Kevin Parle. So amongst all of that and all the media work, I'm fortunately busy. So, I've got the appetite and energy for work that I had when I was half my age and half my weight. So I'm going
do you know what, Peter? I'll tell you what, me and you, mate, we're Peter Pans. We're Peter Pans. There you go, mate. Look, Greggy Boy says, Peter, exactly. Peter, do you have any insight or thoughts on the Essex Boys case?
Oh, my word. Well, what you want to do is need to go on LinkedIn and follow a guy called Dave McKelvey. I think it's McKelvey. Dave McKelvey is a top fella. He's an ex-old Bill, but he's kind of leading the campaign to overturn the convictions of the guys who went to jail for the Essex Boys murder. He's done documentaries. He's done an in-depth investigation. I think he submitted paperwork to the Criminal Cases Review Commission. So Dave McKelvey, he's your man. Check him out. He also runs a couple of brilliant companies called My Local Bobby and TMI. Check Dave McKelvey out.
Good tip. Mr. Steve 170 says, thank you very much for the super chat, by the way. Murder, assault, stabbing is already illegal. Poland has 0 knife carry laws and less stabbings than we do here. It seems our politicians aren't interested in stopping the problem. That's a great point. Why is it that countries like, for an example, Switzerland, they have more guns than we do, 0 gun crime. Poland, no knife laws, 0 knife crime. What is it about the UK?
Well, I was in Krakow in Poland about 2.5 weeks ago with my wife. We went to visit Auschwitz, Birkenau, the 2 concentration camps and the Schindler factory and all of that. An incredible experience. Please go if ever you get the opportunity. And we stayed in Krakow. And of course, I'm a talkative kind of fella. So I spoke to everyone, hotel staff, cab drivers, people in restaurants, bars, at the visitor museums and all of that. And they said, we have very little crime in Krakow. I didn't see an old bill all the time I was there. So you think, no old bill, must be loads of crime. No, not in Krakow, in Poland. They said the crime that they do have in that city is attached to the 2 football teams. There's 2 professional football teams. Yeah. There's a bit of rivalry, and there was allegations that those football teams might be funded by criminality. But you can walk home at 2 o'clock in the morning, so can your wife or girlfriend or partner or kids. No danger of any crime there. You can leave something. You leave a phone on the table in the restaurant when you go to the bathroom. It'll be there when you get back. Very, very little crime. No need for a continual police presence. Right. And here's a bit of setting the cat amongst the pigeons. And I asked people, why was that? And I asked lots of people, why was that? No crime. And they said, and this is what they said, completely unprompted, no immigration, although they did say Poland had accepted into the country 2 million Ukrainians in the last 2 years, which then fed into their other answer, which was one culture. So no immigration, one culture. That's why we've got no crime to worry about.
Peter, I can't ever imagine you having a lot to say for yourself.
That's what I was told. That's what the cab drivers, the hotel staff, the waiters, the waitresses in restaurants, bars, and people who worked in museums and such like, all the people I met, that's what they told me.
Thurston Howell III, thank you very much for the super chat. Hats off to you, Paul, for tackling this issue. Your American brothers' hearts bleeds for the state of affairs. We are keeping you in our prayers, but frankly, we have lost hope. God bless. Thurston, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Got a hell of a lot of friends over in the US. And by the way, one of my good friends in the US had dinner with Donald Trump yesterday. Roman Shaft. Did you see it on the news with the guy with the trainers?
No, I don't. Who picked up the bill?
Well, when he met, I don't know. I mean, Roman's not sure of a few quid, but he might be a few quid worse off after meeting Donald Trump. I don't know, mate. Peter, it's been amazing having you on here. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Always great to see you, mate. Always great to speak to you. I'm sure you'll have an amazing year, and I'm sure the viewers have enjoyed watching you tonight. I really appreciate it. All that really remains for me to say is I'll see you all again soon. Thanks,
Thank you
Peter.
very much for having me, bud. Take care,
All the
everyone.
best. Cheers, guys. See ya.
Bye.
Platform 17 for the 1832 South Central service to Brighton, fast to East Croydon, then Red Hill, Gatwick Airport, Three Bridges, Aldcombe, Haywards Heath, Wimblesfield, Burgess Hill, Essex, Preston Park and Brighton. Customers for London Road, Aldcombe, Falmer and Lewis, also Hove and stations to Worthing should change at right.